Hi guys, I'm Megan, spiritual advisor and relationship coach. And today I'm going to tell you the number one mistake that's been preventing you from being in a committed and loving relationship. But before we begin, I wanted to say welcome to all of my new and returning friends. Also, make sure if you haven't already to hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell as well if you're interested in getting advice and tips on things like love, relationships, spirituality, and much more. Also, if you could give this video a big thumbs up, I seriously appreciate it so much because it not only helps our channel, but it also lets us know what kind of content you guys would like to see in the future. Now, I first wanted to say that if you've done this and were confused why the relationship didn't end up lasting, do not, I'm telling you, do not be embarrassed because it's something most people don't know. In fact, you will not believe just how many of my clients and friends have come to me making this very same mistake. It's super common, and that's why today I want to help you by letting you in on this top relationship expert secret. So if you're interested in the possibility of starting a relationship with someone, do not make this mistake. Let's start this off with a quick story, which I love. So I'll never forget one of my roommates and best friends in college one night came into my room and she was bawling her eyes out and she asked me, she said, "Am I actually really ugly?" And I remember being shocked because she's absolutely gorgeous. And I was like, what? No, why would you even think that? And that's when she was like, well, because no guys ever want to get serious with me. So, you know, us being girls, we dove in and we tried to figure out the answer to this mystery. I mean, was it the kind of guys she was going out with or bad luck or, I mean, what was really going on here? Because my friend was absolutely beautiful and funny and she had an amazing personality and all of these amazing, amazing things that were going for her. And we just couldn't figure it out. And finally, though, we realized something. You see, my friend was sleeping with these guys right off the bat, and what ended up happening is, you know, they'd either kind of ghost her after, or they would only really want her for one thing, which was sex, and the relationship just wouldn't develop past that. And not just with my one friend, but, you know, as I got older, I just kept seeing this time and time again. And so I wanted to look more into it because naturally I was curious. What I learned here was a very common mistake so many people were making nowadays. And it's this: they were rushing into having sex on the first or second date, often because they really, really liked the person. Then what would happen, not always, but probably 9 times out of 10, is this would turn into either one of two things. Either it would not turn into anything at all, or it would end up being like super casual, sort of, you know, without labels, and someone would normally get hurt. So I was naturally really curious why this was the case, and I did more digging. See, this concept applies to men and women in different ways, but it's important to remember that both men and women can learn from this mistake. You see, when you have sex with someone, you're establishing the ultimate act of physical intimacy with that person. Now, it's important to realize here that intimacy creates bonds between people. And what are bonds? Bonds are attachments that we often feel that create love and relationships. The two primary types of intimacy for establishing bonds are emotional and physical. But the thing to remember is that men and women experience these differently. For men, if they are fully physically intimate through sex, they are programmed to then search for their next mate. I know, that's hard to hear for some of you, but it's sadly true, and there is a catch. This is true unless, and this part's very important, unless emotional intimacy has been established. So basically, if you have sex with a guy on the first date, you've already given him the full extent of physical intimacy, but you haven't yet had the chance to really establish that emotional intimacy with him. So what does this mean? It means that most likely he's on to the next woman. However, I want to make sure to be clear here that this doesn't mean that as soon as you have sex with a guy, he's just like, you know, see ya. What I mean to say is that this will most likely be the case if you guys haven't established emotional intimacy with each other yet. Well, you're probably like, Megan, you keep saying emotional intimacy, but what even is that? Basically, emotional intimacy is the non-physical aspects of the relationship, which you build by doing things like getting to know each other or talking and dating and laughing and really everything between the two of you that is not physical. So when people say these generic things like men don't commit or, all men cheat, that's just not true. However, men will, at least most of the time, only commit after emotional intimacy has been established first. That's why sometimes the best relationships tend to grow out of friendships because, again, that emotional intimacy has already been established. Now, you might wonder if the same rule applies to women. For women, order tends to matter less, but this isn't because women don't like sex. Instead, it's because as women, we tend to be more emotional by nature. Not all women, but if you're anything like me, then yeah. So for most women, sex in and of itself is a much more emotional experience. Sex can also be just as much an emotional experience for men, but again, that's after the emotional intimacy has been established. This isn't to say emotional intimacy doesn't need to be established for women, because honestly, the more emotional intimacy, the better the sex will be. Okay, here, let's look at an example to explain this. So let's say Laura and Josh go out on a date and they talk and they laugh and they have a natural chemistry from the start. At the end of the night, they kiss, and that's that. Date 2 comes along, and again, they really are hitting it off by this point. So it's extremely likely that Laura could have established enough emotional intimacy to even begin creating that bond. Josh, also being really attracted to Laura and having enjoyed her company and having that chemistry, probably wants to have sex. Now, let's say Josh sadly never watched this video. He at that moment might be like, wow, I really like Sarah, which naturally means he wants to, but he probably isn't aware of what that will actually subconsciously do to him. Sarah, on the other hand, is feeling like she's falling pretty fast. So when Josh asks her over at the end of the night and then eventually asks, if she wants to have sex with him, she agrees because she also is not aware what really that will subconsciously mean for them both, because Sarah also sadly didn't watch this video. So pretend that Sarah and Josh that night have great sex, but still listen close here. The next morning, this is what will most likely happen. Sarah will Uber home and hope all day to see a text from Josh asking her on another date. Sarah, at this point, has already established a level of emotional intimacy with him as well as physical intimacy and is now pretty attached. They really hit it off and everything was great, so she's in tears the next day when she still hasn't heard from Josh. Josh, though, on the other hand, who, remember, also really was into Sarah a second ago, now is instead checking Bumble for a new match. He doesn't really try to think too much about it or understand why he's already on to the next girl, but it's something subconscious. And if he had watched this video, he would know that it's because he himself had not established that level of emotional intimacy yet with Sarah, even though he could easily see the potential for it. However, they did have sex, the highest degree of physical intimacy. And remember what I said about the secret to men committing? Emotional intimacy must be established first before sex, or they will naturally be inclined to continue searching for potential mates. So let's say now that Sarah and Josh watched this video and better understand this secret. This is how each would have acted differently here. For Sarah, once she felt that Josh was someone she could potentially see herself wanting something more serious with, she would have turned down sex. Now, this doesn't mean she should avoid all physical intimacy with him. That's also not good. It just means that she should, want to keep things at a more comfortable pace as they continue to build that emotional intimacy. For Josh, when he felt that Sarah was someone he could potentially see himself in a relationship with down the road, he would himself initiate the physical aspects of their relationship at a slower pace. That way, he will allow himself to really build that emotional intimacy so that when the time is right, the sex will not only be 1,000 times better, but he will either want to commit or be in that committed relationship already. Now, this isn't to say that if someone you're dating tries to have sex with you, they can't see themselves being serious with you, because remember, A lot of people are not aware of this rule. So for example, if a guy or girl tries to have sex with you, it really doesn't mean they don't like you. It's up to you in that moment to decide what you want, and just know the consequences either way. That being said, if someone you're actively dating is trying to take things slow, that can actually be a really good sign. I have friends and clients who are always saying to me like, oh, he didn't try anything, we only kissed, and he just must not really be into me. And I'm always like, no, that's the exact opposite. Like, more than likely, he wants to sleep with you. And the fact that he's not trying to often, indicates that he's actually starting to develop feelings for you. So maybe at this point, you're like, I think I get it, but when is the right time? When can you know if you've established emotional intimacy with a man? I mean, there are several ways and signs to look out for here, and I'm actually thinking about doing a whole video devoted just to this topic. So if that's something you'd like to see and learn, make sure to comment down below and let me know. Anyway, that is one of the most common #1 mistakes people make when it comes to relationships and dating. So who knows? It may even be the thing that's been preventing you from finding the right person this whole time. So if you haven't been doing this and have been struggling with committed relationships, I say you should try it. And I'm telling you right now that your mind will be blown. Anyway, that is it for today. Remember again to give this video a big thumbs up and comment down below if you can relate. I seriously love you guys so much, and I always look forward to reading your comments. It was such a blessing talking to you all today, and I hope to see you again really soon. Bye.